Annyeonghaseyo, this is meowmurai. Let's continue our game of Despera Drops running on Nintendo Switch 2.
立ち止まっている暇などないぞ。
ぼさっとしてると、おい、これでいいのか?
Rebecca left me with those words and hung up. I was rooted in place for some time after our call ended. I'd given her an answer in the spur of the moment. Now I couldn't help but question whether my judgment had been clear or cloudy. But there was no denying the fact that I was completely stuck. Even if it came with risks, I was desperate to advance in any direction with open doors. The assailants had said that everyone other than me was disposable. If I wished to leave them out of my mess, going alone was the best choice. I didn't want to cause them any trouble. I had to do this on my own. That way, even if this was a trap, I'd be the only one captured. Rebecca sounded just like Kamu when she criticized the others and told me to protect my innocence. But the truth was I'd already committed too many crimes. I couldn't pretend to be virtuously innocent after all that. I mean, I could. I took a deep breath to steady my chaotic emotions and stretched my arms, preparing to get started on the grocery trip.
Oi.
Just then, a brusque, manly voice spoke to me. I swallowed a yelp that threatened to escape my mouth.
アッシュさん、いつからそこにいたんですか?
Perhaps he'd overheard my call with Rebecca. I searched his impassive expression for clues, but found no answers.
お前こそ買い出しじゃなかったのか。出かける前に具合悪そうだったが。
I was taking a short break.
ちょっとここで休んでました。
そうか。もういいのか?
His wording was curt like usual, but I could hear the slightest hint of concern in his tone.
はい、もう良くなりました。ありがとうございます。
Wait, now you're concerned? You were going to leave me.
礼を言われる理由がね。
He turned away standoffishly.
ところで、アッシュさんはどうしてここに?
Oh, I don't know what
やり
color
直せるの
feather
な
that
ら
is.
そう
Is
す
that
るのがい
good?
い。
これでいいか?
Doesn't seem like it's good.
Oi.
Rebecca, actually. He'd probably heard my call. In that case, I felt awful even considering trying to hide it.
実は、レベッカさんが。
別に興味ねえ。
He cut me off. His words were blunt like always, but I could sense some fine fluctuations of emotions within his tone.
でも、
If I acted out of line, he might suffer the consequences, yet he didn't question me about it. I sighed, resigned, and decided to accept his goodwill for now.
ところで、アッシュさんはどうしてここに?
Oh, I really can't tell what color
サリーも
they
連れて
seem
って。
gray.
これで問題ないか。
I mean, is every decision gray with Ash?
おい。お前。
Did you hear anything?
何か聞きましたか?
何か?
He looked at the phone in my hand.
友達と電話してたんだろ?
え?
別に居場所がバレなけりゃ好きにしていいルールだからな。普段は俺たちしか話し相手がいないんだ。玉の気晴らしに文句を言う筋合いはねえよ。
It felt as if he was advising me to go with the story that I'd been calling a friend and leave it at that. This was probably his way of showing consideration. The rare display of kindness from awkward Ash tickled me pink.
ところで、アッシュさんはどうしてここに?
別に。ただ、迷子になってんじゃないかと思っただけだ。
心配して来てくれたんですか?
そういうわけじゃねえよ。
Even while saying that, Ash didn't leave my side. He didn't make any motion to walk off elsewhere either. Whether he truly worried I'd gotten lost or not, he went out of his way to come find me, to help me.
ありがとうございます、アッシュさん。これから食材を買いに行くところなんです。夕飯、何が食べたいですか?
別に。お前が作るやつはどれもうまいから。
He muttered, sounding a tad embarrassed before sneaking a quick glance at me.
買い出し行くんだろ?
はい、 じゃあ行ってきますね。
俺も一緒に行く。一人じゃ荷物持ちきれねえだろ。それにお前一人じゃ危なっかしいからな。
He sighed as he spoke, sounding exasperated, but behind it was a softness that he couldn't hide. He was a good person, not just Ash. Rom, Sally, Hamiel, Gib, Camus. Well, I don't know about Hamiel, but despite my conversation with Rebecca, I knew they were good people. I thought firmly once again that I didn't want to cause them any more trouble. Oh, we didn't get any feathers that time. It seemed like that was the best decision, though. When I returned with Ash, only Sally and Camus were left behind in our room.
ああ、お帰りなさい。
お姉ちゃんおかえり。ただいま。みんなは？資金調達とか車の整備とかしてくるって言ってたよ。そっか。
Now that I thought about it, I left all the necessary prep for our fugitive life to the others. My mood was rapidly plummeting, but I tried to chase the negative thoughts from my mind. I'd do what I could right now. I dove right into cooking with the food I just bought. Sometime into my cooking session, I heard the chime of a bell from behind me.
うわ、うまそう。
ラミー君、おかえりなさい。
I was startled by Rom, who'd come practically cheek to cheek with me to peer over my shoulder. He looked just as surprised as I was.
まだびっくりするの？おかしいな。せっかく鈴つけたのに。
鈴？
ほら、ここにつけたんだよ。ハミエルがいきなり後ろにいるのはびっくりするから、共同生活中はつけてろって言ってさ。
As he explained, Rom prodded the bell and made it ring. He was more like a cat every day. At the same time, the way he said living together cemented that the others still intended on going through this as a group, and my heart ached a little.
ってことで、この音がしたら僕が来たって覚えて。まあ、うっかり鈴鳴らさないで歩くかもしれないけどさ。って、ミカ？ぼーっとしてどうしたの？
なんでもないよ。
ならいいけど。それより、今日の夕飯は何？すげえいい匂い。
Rom was filled with boundless glee. He didn't hound me about it, giving me room to breathe as we chatted about our menu today. Rebecca scorned them as criminals, but after some reflection, I was sure my feelings hadn't changed. They were good people. They were friends. That was why I had to go see her tomorrow. I had to learn the truth and figure out what I wanted to do. The next day. Franz, Colmar, July 24th, 2028, 11:55 Monday. La Petite Venise. I lied, telling the others I was buying groceries yet again, and went to the meeting place alone. Rebecca was there, sitting at a table outside.
Hi, Amamine-san.
Just in case, I surveyed the surroundings, but there didn't seem to be anyone lying in wait to ambush me. For now, it didn't appear to be a trap. With a big centering breath, I sat down across from Rebecca.
こんにちは、レベッカさん。
思ったより元気そうでよかったわ。早速ガレットを頼みましょう。私のおごりだから安心して。もちろん取材費ってやつで経費にするから。
Rebecca winked at me playfully and put it in our order. The mouth-watering scents of melted cheese and ham billowed from galettes, fresh from the oven. My stomach growled with anticipation.
さあ、冷める前に食べましょう。
Oh, I mean, it's already in my mouth by the time she says that. Rebecca was at ease, as if she were merely with a friend. It relaxed me too, and I dug in. As we ate, Rebecca chatted to me about all kinds of trifling things. She talked about how her cameraman was struggling to get used to his work, that she barely had time to go home these days, so her underwear situation was dire. She didn't try to force anything out of me. It'd been a while since I'd exchanged such mundane small talk. If I was anxious before, it had all but melted away. But once we finished our food, she dove into the heart of the matter.
それで、まず聞きたいんだけど、あなたを狙った二人組って、この二人で会ってるかしら？
Rebecca took out a photo. It was blurry, but the pair depicted on it were unmistakably those assailants.
合ってます。でも、この写真はどうやって？
ちょうどバーゼルにいたから、目撃情報がないか調べてみたのよ。やっぱりこの二人ね。 だとすると厄介だわ。
そうなんですか？
ええ。実はこの二人、いくら調べても情報が出てこないのよ。犯罪歴もないみたいだし、何らかの組織に所属している形跡もない。どこからどう見ても、その道のプロよ。
プロ。
いわゆる表社会では生きてない人間。普通にしていたら会うこともないような裏社会の人間よ。マフィアか、それとも政治家か。どちらにせよ犯罪のプロが絡んでるわ。きっとあなたを狙っている相手はよほどの大物よ。覚悟して。
Rebecca's grave tone gave me goosebumps. I'd known that I was up against someone formidable. However, when the newscaster of Canal Zero, Rebecca Russo, was saying it, the pressure was next level. She had reported on corrupt politicians, mafia feuds, and ghastly crime scenes. Someone as experienced as that was telling me to watch my back.
悪いことは言わないわ。こういう輩から逃げ切るなんて絶対無理よ。自首した方がずっといい。
でも、
What if those people captured me even when in police custody? There were no safe havens anywhere. This started with a police arrest after all.
警察に内通者がいる。そういうのね。
Rebecca saw my thoughts before I could voice them. She'd suspected the police the whole time. The media restrictions felt odd to her. She said as much on live news. I could trust her with my suspicions.
はい。きっと、自首をすれば、警察に行けば、彼らに捕まってしまいます。私は、ただ、殺人現場に居合わせてしまっただけなんです。
With utmost caution, I confided in her how I ended up on the wanted list charged with murder. I'd been summoned to a restaurant in Rome. A man called Mr. Hartfield was killed without warning. A strange man had been present at the scene. After being arrested by the police, men in black had interrupted my questioning, and I wound up on the van as a murderer without a chance to defend myself. I think they meant in the van. I mean, I'm not literally on top of the van. I focused on my own story as much as I could so that it wouldn't disadvantage the others. As I shared my tale, Rebecca fell into her thoughts.
そう。つまりあなたはただ罪をなすりつけられただけなのかしら。いえ、それなら今も狙われる理由にはならないわね。でも、そうね。やっぱり私はあなたに自首をおすすめするわ。
でも、
あなたの言いたいことはわかるわ。もちろん不用意に自首をするのは危険よ。でも多分あなたを狙う相手も全てに圧力をかけられるわけじゃないと思うの。相手の力の及ぶ組織がどこかを見極めればいいのよ。私に任せて信頼できる警察を紹介するわ。あなたを不当に拘束したりはさせない。妙な相手に連れて行ったりはさせない。
But what if turning myself in put the others at risk? I refused to put them in even a modicum of danger. There were no guarantees. Above all, I still didn't know whether I could trust Rebecca. What was right and what was wrong? I stayed quiet, and Rebecca leaned forward.
考えてみて。あなたは冤罪なの。犯罪者たちと一緒にいたら何が起こるか。殺されないとも限らないのよ。
そんな、皆さんそんな人じゃ。
これが彼らの経歴よ。
The documents Rebecca took out were detailed criminal records. Bodily harm charges, monetary damage caused by fraud and theft, data alteration details, photos of a half-blown-up house, articles on an officer's murder. One after another, data that proved the extent and consequences of their crimes lined up before my eyes.
あなたが一緒にいるのはそういう人たちよ。殺されなくても暴行でもされたらどうするの？
とりあえず記録しておけ。
これでいいかな。
And We say they wouldn't. I have faith in them. Maybe I should turn myself in. I think I have faith in them is probably the right way to go.
私は彼らを信じてます。
どうして彼らは犯罪者なのよ。今までたくさんの罪を犯してきたのよ。
I mean, what does my report look like? Maybe there's some slight fabrication and everything.
そんな人を信じたってどうせあなたが邪魔になれば見捨てていく。その時になって困るのはあなたでしょ。
それでも今は誰よりも信用できます。警察よりも、それにメディアよりも。
I felt guilty saying it to Rebecca, but this was my honest opinion.
それは今は警察から逃げるという共通の目的があるからでしょ。でも正体不明の奴らに狙われている以上、彼らにとってあなたはいずれ足手まといとなる。
Yeah, I mean, she's not wrong from her perspective. I mean, this is like good normal advice. Rebecca forced me to face the problem I'd been trying to ignore and wish away.
それは
すでに問題はあなたの安全だけじゃなくなっているのよ。
I couldn't refute that.
レベッカ・ロッソの言う通りだな。
I turned around with a start. There behind me, I saw the Europol officers who'd come after us in Milan.
ちょっとあなたたちは誰よ。勝手に人の取材に割り込まないで。
取材は終わりだ。テレビ屋にはお引き取り願おう。
Why are these actors so loud? The older officer, Inspector Dulce, wedged himself between Rebecca and me.
はあ？何勝手なことを言ってるのよ。一体あなたたちは何様のつもり？
我々は欧州警察で
Oh
す。
my god, it's so
重大
loud.
事件の捜査への協力を要請します。
The younger officer, Officer Noel, thrust his ID in front of Rebecca.
いくら欧州警察だからってそんな勝手なことを認めるわけないでしょ。そもそもこっちの取材が先じゃない。
君が取材をして彼女を助けられるのか？
それは真実を追い求めていれば。
真実を追うだけなら誰でもできる。大切なのは真実とどう対峙するかだ。
そんなことは言われなくても分かってるわ。
While Rebecca and Inspector Dulce quarreled, Officer Noel walked over and blocked my way.
やあ、こんにちは。前にも名乗ったけど、僕たちは欧州警察の捜査官だ。重要参考人として一緒に来ても。
Before he could finish, I sprang from my seat and ran.
君、待ちなさい。
せっかく話してたのにどうして邪魔するのよ。待って違うの、私が呼んだんじゃないからね。
I heard Rebecca and Inspector Dulce bickering behind me. I had no time to decide. I didn't want to be caught before I found my resolve. Was a lawful world waiting for me if these officers arrested me, or was it a world of injustice?
待ちなさい。
A strong hand gripped my arm and pulled hard. He'd caught me. I had no way out. I wilted in despair, but the next moment I felt a sudden jolt behind me.
走れ。
It was Ash. Almost immediately, I felt a powerful tug on my free arm. It took a second to sink in. Ash had rammed himself into Officer Noel. Why is Ash here?
逃げるぞ。
I felt limp. Ash pulled me by the hand and began running. The Europol officers still shouted at us, but I ignored them and broke into a sprint to keep up. Yeah, it's kind of weird Ash is here. He's so aloof. I didn't know why Ash was here, but I did know that the second I let go of his hand, I'd be arrested. I don't want to be caught. That thought gave me a second wind, my heart pounding in my ears. With Ash leading me by the hand, the two of us dashed through the beautiful streets of Kalmar. After turning several corners and alleys, I chanced a glance over my shoulder. The officers were nowhere in sight. Still, we didn't stop. Slightly reassured now that I couldn't see our pursuers, I asked Ash the question plaguing my mind.
どうしてアッシュさんはあの場所に？偶然じゃないですよね。
Ash stole a glance at me and squeezed my hand. A somewhat chagrined expression took over his face.
昨日からお前の様子が変だったからよ。気になって後をつけてた。悪い。 別にお前を信じてなかったわけじゃねえから。
Possibly because he felt awkward about tailing me, Ash's speech was hesitant.
いえ、おかげで助かりました。それに勝手なことをしてたのは私の方ですし。
別にお前は悪かねえよ。あのレベッカって女の言う通り、犯罪者と一緒にいたっていいことなんてないしな。
聞いてたんですか？
Ash didn't reply, but it was obvious. It was only natural, since he and the others would have been implicated if I'd said anything thoughtlessly. I had no right to reproach him. In fact, I was the one who owed him an apology.
アッシュさん。
Just as I was about to say sorry, Ash interrupted me.
だから、なんだ。
The man quickly looked over his shoulder at me.
ありがとな。
Startled by the unexpected word, I almost came to a stop, but his hand, tight around mine, kept pulling me forward.
レベッカから俺らのことをかばってくれただろ。自分がどうしようもない犯罪者だってのは言われなくても分かってんだ。当然お前にもそう思われてると思ってたから。レベッカに対してお前があんな風に言ってくれたのは少し嬉しかったからよ。
I know, he's so tsundere. I guess there always has to be at least one character like this in one of these games. Leaving it at that, Ash turned forward and focused on running. However, our pursuers didn't let us off the hook that easily. I heard Inspector Dulce's voice bouncing off the alleyway walls behind us. He'd caught up.
しつこいやつらだ。こんなことならバイクを持ってくるんだった。
Yeah, I do like Ash quite a bit, but yeah, he is sort of that tsundere character. So I probably wouldn't pick him at the end if it was asking me which character to hook up with. You know. Though it was gradual, the distance between us and the officers shrunk. I was the root of the problem.
アッシュさんだけでも逃げてください。私の足じゃ足手まといになるだけですから。
ああ、んなことは分かっててこうしてんだよ。弱音を吐く余裕があるなら足を動かせ。
Ash's grip on my hand became even stronger. I nearly stumbled, but he supported me as he ran.
すみません。
By now, we'd been running non-stop for 10 minutes. I'd already lost track of whether I was running or whether I was only being pulled along.
つってもそろそろ限界だよな。
When we turned in an alley, I saw a small tourist trolley making a temporary stop. Ash saw it too. He let go of my hand and gave me a firm push on the back.
あれ乗れ。
I ran dutifully and jumped onto the trolley a moment before it departed. I skidded. The trolley started to chug away just as I'd landed. I spun around to help Ash jump on after me, but...
取り押さえろ。
アッシュさん。
What I saw instead was Ash being pinned down by the police, toppling onto the ground. Police had been standing by in the vicinity? I took a sharp gasp. When had they started surveilling me? Ash resisted, but his efforts were in vain. He was shoved into a police car by a crowd of officers. I could only watch him in horror as the distance grew. How can I didn't have the time to calculate my next move. I saw several officers sprinting towards the trolley. As a sightseeing car, the trolley wasn't going fast enough to beat the athletic officers on foot. They'd arrest me if I stayed on board. When the trolley slowed to turn a corner, I took the opening to push aside other passengers and jumped down. Ignoring the grumbling I left behind me, I broke into a run and stumbled into the nearest back alley. The piercing sirens of the police cars passed by. I took cover, slamming my back against the wall and burying my face in my hands. What do I do? Ash! My only wish had been to keep the others out of my mess. Fate as cruel a mistress as ever, I'd brought about the worst possible scenario. Ash had been arrested while trying to protect me. He could have easily abandoned me, but he didn't. I had to save him. I must. After checking that there were no police around, I sprang out of the back alley and frantically ran to the hotel. I nearly face-planted as I burst through our hotel room's door.
あ、おかえり。今日のお昼ご飯は。
大変です。アッシュさんが。
My relentless sprint had knocked the breath out of me. Panting, I explained what had just happened. Everyone's faces tensed between shock and horror.
欧州警察の捜査官がこの町にいるだと。
しかも、アッシュ君が捕まったとは。
警官に捕まったとなると、コルマール中央警察署の留置所に入った可能性が高いな。
うわ、ほんとだ。アッシュ君入ってくとこ映ってるじゃん。
Sally immediately pulled up camera feeds from around town on her laptop. She rewound the footage that showed the front of the station by a few minutes. On her screen was Ash being roughly escorted into the building. Oh no.
仲間の危機です。ついに愛の地球戦隊を結成する時が来たようですね。
Oh, that's not really a name that has a good ring to it.
俺は絶対に入らないからな。
In this case, I agree with Hamiel.
サリーもそんなダサい名前やだ。
そんな。
とにかく早く助けに行かないと。
悪いが、俺は反対だね。
でもアッシュさんは私を助けてくれて。
いいおとりになったってことだな。
Hamiel's gaze was as cold as ice. His words were a slap to the face. Wanting to seek their cooperation was a mistake. I had returned to the hotel with unyielding faith. We were a team. I'd assumed that if one of us was caught, we'd try to save them as a group. But that had been my misunderstanding. How could I have forgotten? Hamiel has said countless times that we weren't comrades.
僕としては今後も逃げるなら兄貴もいた方がいいとは思うけど。
だがわざわざ敵地に赴くのはリスクが高いな。事業家の屋敷とはレベルが違う。行けば全員捕まる可能性もある。
セキュリティめんどいもんね。サリーもさすがに警察署の中まで覗き込もうとは思わないよ。
それに行ったところで、すでに護送車で運ばれているという可能性もある。正直、厳しいだろうな。
そうだな。残念だが、アッシュとはここでおさらばと行こう。もともと個人主義だったみたいだしな。
状況を記録するのか？
これで問題ありませんか？
I may need more save slots. There's actually a lot of decision gates in this game. Isn't he our teammate? I thought you were better than this. I understand. I guess my natural reaction would be, I thought you were better than this.
そんなことを言うなんて見損ないました。
おいおい、むしろ今までどんだけ過大評価してたんだ？散々言ってきたじゃないか。
それでも口ではなんだかんだ言っても最後は助けてくれる人だと思ってたんです。
そりゃご期待に添えなくて悪かったな。
ハミーくんらしいよね。サリー的には期待通りだよ。っていうか、ここでアッシュくんを助けに行くって言ったりしたら何か裏があるんじゃないかって思っちゃうし。
No one other than Hamiel explicitly said they'd abandon Ash, but at the same time, no one else supported a rescue. When weighted against the risk of their own arrest, they gave up, telling themselves there was no other way. I had to save Ash, even if I was alone. It was my fault he'd been captured after all.
わかりました。なら、一人で行ってきます。
え？マジで言ってんの？絶対そんな無理だって。
でも、アッシュさんを見捨てるなんて私にはできません。
Yeah, I can't imagine this ending that well. I mean, this is not a great
やり
decision.
直せるのなら、そうするのもいい。
これでいいかな。
I guess I understand would also be what I would say. I probably wouldn't say isn't he our teammate? That would make sense from her perspective. Yeah, let's go.
そんなアッシュさんは仲間じゃないんですか？
仲間じゃねえよ。アッシュだけじゃない。ここにいるのは誰一人仲間じゃない。何度もそう言ってるだろ。
そんな。
いや、僕としてはアッシュ君は愛の地球戦隊の貴重なメンバーではあるのですが、今回ばかりは分が悪いと言いますか。
そうだよな。トゥーンで助けてもらった義理もあるし、このまま見捨てるってのは気持ち悪いけどさ。
When weighed against the risk of their own arrest, they gave up, telling themselves there was no other way. Oh, we got all three. We got what? There's yellow. What? Wait, what? How there's so many? How are there so many colors of feathers? I thought there was like 3 colors. Well, actually, I thought there was 2 colors up until I saw yellow. I had to save Ash, even if I was alone. It was my fault he'd been captured after all. Okay, now I'm really curious what the other one's going to be.
どこに行くつ
Oh,
も
I
り
mean,
だ
that was a lot of feathers.
これでいいか
I guess that was a feather for every character? That's my guess. What if I say I understand?
皆さんの言うことは確かに理解できます。
Yeah, oh, okay. That makes sense for the colors to be different characters. Although I thought there was different colors for whether or not it was a good or bad influence as well.
なんだ。思ったより物分かりがいいな。
理解してくれて助かる。もちろんアッシュを見捨てるのは本意ではない。機会があれば助けるつもりだ。
I couldn't deny that their judgment was wise in its own way. It was only natural to prioritize protecting yourself. I couldn't shame them for it. Okay, so it's just whether or not you get a point, but it doesn't tell you if it's a good or bad point. For example, if they hadn't come to save me from that mansion in Thun, I would never have resented them for it. I'd ended up in that crisis due to my own negligence. It was unreasonable to ask them to take responsibility for my actions. But it's different this time. Ash had been arrested because he tried to help me. It was my duty to go save him. It was self-centered to involve the others in my own problem. There was only one thing I could do.
わかりました。なら一人で行ってきます。
Okay. I know, I didn't really look up any, like, the point system in this game. I really did want to play it blind. Like, I didn't want to have, like, the tree in front of me. I don't think that's really very fun the very first time you play a visual novel. Like, maybe if you do it, like, subsequent plays to get the true ending. But, like, the first time, I just want to just see what I would do. You know, I am obviously cheating a little bit by going back and reloading my save. But, you know, I don't want to have, like, the bad end for the first play. I mean, that's no fun at all.
え？マジで言ってんの？絶対そんな無理だって。
I mean, unless it's really funny. But I have a feeling the bad end on this game is not funny.
でもアッシュさんを見捨てるなんて私にはできません。
I rushed out of the hotel. Alone, I sprinted to the Colmar police station we'd seen on Sally's laptop. Even if the price was my own arrest, it was better than forsaking someone who'd saved me. Yeah, like, I mean, like, some visual novels, they, like, you're supposed to lose on purpose, and you're supposed to get bad endings, and the more bad endings you get, then the more of the plot unlocks. I don't think this is that kind of game, though. It doesn't feel like that kind of game. In fact, it wasn't like that with Our World Has Ended, you know, the other red visual novel that was on the Switch. Even if the price was my own arrest, it was better than forsaking someone who'd saved me. Hame would call me an idiot. Kama would say that I was only being self-righteous, and that this was meaningless self-sacrifice. But if I ran away here, I would never be able to return to who I once was. I would never forgive myself, and so I pressed on. I knew that this was completely different from the mansion mission with Ram and Thun, but I still ran to rescue Ash. In the back of my mind, I knew that infiltrating the detention cells of a police station was just another crime on my list, but I couldn't stop. France, July 24th, 2028, 1327, Monday, Colmar, outside station. I know, what am I exactly going to do? I have no skills. When I reached the main entrance of the station, I hid around in a corner, quietly observing the building. Several police cars had rushed out from the station, and officers were hustling around. It was hectic, panicked. Right by the doors, I saw the car that had escorted Ash here. It had to be the right place. As expected, there were also security cameras outside the building. I spotted officers standing guard, guns heavy at their hips. Will I be able to sneak into a place like this? I didn't have the assistance of anyone else today. Sally wasn't checking the cameras, and I didn't have Rom leading the way. But I had to do this no matter what. I had to sneak in, even if I was alone. After waiting for the last few police cars to drive off, I hid my face with a hat that I brought and circled the building, looking for possible entrances. There was a single ajar window on the second floor. If I climbed onto the roof of a police vehicle parked in the lot, I should be able to reach it. Though not as silent as Rom, I somehow managed to sneak inside before anyone else could see me. Oh, I guess he did pick up some skills from Rom. I totally forgot about that. Luck was on my side. There was no one in this room. I pressed my ear against the door. There were no footsteps. I had to find Ash. I moved fast, slipping out the door and walking deeper into the station discreetly. I kept my footsteps as quiet as possible, thinking of every lesson the others had taught me. Not much time had passed since Ash's arrest. It was highly likely that he was in an interrogation room. According to an emergency exit floor plan next to the staircase, the interrogation room was on the 3rd floor. I climbed the stairs without hesitation. The presence of officers inside the station was much scarier than I'd imagined. I managed to reach the 3rd floor without bumping into anyone. I hope this keeps up and no one finds me. Not a moment after I thought that, I heard voices and footsteps approaching the stairs below. They could run right into me if I didn't think fast. I climbed further up and took cover in a blind spot on the landing. I know, she's actually doing a pretty good job, huh? The staircase had access to the roof, but bags were piled on top of the steps. It likely hadn't been used in years. I doubted they would come up this far. The footsteps drew nearer. By the sound of it, I was up against 2 people. I held my breath. Then I spotted a man in a black suit in the corner of my vision. Oh, there's another character in this game? Was that? It was too brief a sighting to make out many details, but the man had seemed very similar to the people who questioned me in Rome. The power the agent in black wielded over the police was reminiscent of my interrogation too. They had to be related, somehow. They must have been talking about Ash. If so, the agent in black would probably make his way to Ash's interrogation room next. When I'd been arrested, these agents had just barged in and shouted leading questions at me before framing me as a murderer. Ash was in danger. After confirming the officer had reached the bottom of the stairs and walked away, I spied on the hall. The agent in black was gone, but I could still hear his footsteps. I followed the trail. France, July 24th, 2028, Colmar, Monday, 1344, police station. He led me to a hall lined with identical doors with windows on them. Each door sign read interrogation room. Ash was in one of these rooms, so that I couldn't be seen from inside. I peeked through the observation windows one by one. It wasn't until I'd reached the last door at the end of the corridor that I saw the agent in black. On the opposite side of the room was Ash, in cuffs. Ash. Good. Doesn't look like he's hurt. Only the muffled sound of Ash's irate voice filtered through the door. I couldn't make out what he was saying, but I had to rescue him, and fast. The problem was the agent in black didn't seem like he planned on leaving anytime soon. I've got to lead that man outside somehow. I scanned the hall, but the only noteworthy object was the fire alarm. Would the agent in black evacuate Ash's room if I pulled that alarm? was no time to think. If I took my sweet time, other officers might come around. I gulped and pulled the alarm with determination. Yeah, look at her, man. She's really going for it. A shrill siren pierced the entire building. The agent in black groaned and made to rush out of the room.
Oi, 何事だ?
So that the man wouldn't notice me, I frantically scrambled into the room closest to me. I curled into myself and held my breath. After the running footsteps grew silent, I leaped out and sprinted to Ash's room. When I got to the interrogation room Ash was in, I checked on him through the door's window again.
アッシュさん、
お前、なんでここに？
アッシュさんを助けに来たんです。今、扉を。
I twisted the handle, but it didn't budge. Of course it was locked. I should have expected this.
鍵がなきゃ無駄だ。あの野郎が戻ってくる前に早く逃げろ。
嫌です。アッシュさんを残して逃げられません。
なこと言ってる場合か。お前まで捕まったら意味がねえだろ。
Ash yelled at me so fiercely I swore I felt the door vibrate.
とにかく、逃げるなら一緒です。なんとかして助け出しますから、待っててください。
That said, I didn't know the first thing about lockpicking. I didn't have the key, and blunt force was out of the question. Just as I resigned myself to fumbling around the station for a key, someone chuckled right behind me.
やっぱり僕がいなきゃダメじゃん。
Oh, I knew he would show up. I turned around to see Ram. He stood there with a toothy grin, lockpick tools in hand.
びっくりした？忍び込むのにさすがに鈴は外してきちゃったからさ。
ラミ君、どうしてここに？
どうやら僕らが指名手配犯だってホテルのフロントにバレちゃったみたいで警察呼ばれちゃったんだよ。
え？そうなの？でもどうして？
それがさ、ハミエルが調子に乗ってホテルの代金をごまかそうとして失敗してさ、ありえなくない？
Of course it's Hamiel. Ram began working the lock of the interrogation room as he spoke.
そうなの？ハミエルさんでもそんな失敗するんだ。
ほんと、そのおかげで街中のパトカーが来たんじゃないかってくらいの大騒ぎだよ。慌てて逃げ出す羽目になっちゃった。
Hearing that, I connected the dots. Maybe that's what all those police cars earlier were driving out to deal with. Disaster was trailing after me wherever I went.
そうなんだ。でも、そのおかげで警察署に警官がほとんどいなくて、助かったのかな？
かもね。姉ちゃんはまだまだ怪盗見習いだから、そうじゃなかったら、ここまで来れなかったと思うよ。ラッキーだったじゃん。
Coincidence. When he said it like that, I had to wonder about it all. By pure chance, the hotel called the police just as I attempted to sneak into this building, and all that because Hamiel made a mistake? So out of character?
とにかく、もうこの街にはいられないから、急いで逃げないとね。
You know what I find interesting is that all through this time, Miku has only used her power once, and that was on accident. Or wait, maybe twice. Like, her power isn't a factor in this story at all. Just like a little bit to start the story, and then we never use it again. So it's interesting that the mechanic is in there, but it's not even being used. Despite being under the wire, Ram didn't look perturbed.
でも、そんな大変な状況なのに、どうしてここに？
どうせ逃げるなら、やっぱみんなで一緒なのがいいじゃん。だから、ちゃちゃっと兄貴を助けて逃げようぜ。ジブたちもすぐ近くまで来てるから。
Better to have the whole team. I was so touched with joy for that moment, I forgot how to breathe.
ラミー君、ありがとう。
Yeah, I'm assuming at some point in time it'll come up. At the very least, it'll come up at the end, when they have to figure out who's doing what. But it is funny that it's just not like something that's happening all the time.
ま、僕は最初からアッシュの兄貴を助けたいって思ってたけどね。ハミエルは最後まで放っておけって言ってたけどさ。ってこれ言っちゃダメだったか。ごめんごめん。
Before I knew it, Rama had picked the lock. The door opened. With a ferociousness that reminded me of a feral beast released from a cage, Ash stomped out of the room.
ハミエルの野郎。 好き放題言いやがって。
Yeah, you know, of course I would be mad too.
兄貴、言っとくけど合流しても暴れないでよ。みんなで脱出するんだからな。ほら、二人とも、こっちこっち。
Rom led the charge and broke into a run. And just like that, I rescued Ash with Rom's help. After that, thanks to the others standing by in the vicinity, we safely evaded capture and were able to flee from Colmar. France, Colmar, July 24th, 2028, Monday, 2201, Mountain. Oh, some time has passed.
サリー、もう疲れた。
Right now, we were hiking up a mountain in France. After the run-in with Europol today, the streets were crawling with police. Yip determined that we'd be discovered eventually if we kept to the roads. So we abandoned our rides and fled to the closest mountain. We started strong, but now the sun had set. It was so dark that I felt insecure about each step. But we'd agreed that using any source of light would lead to our discovery, so we could only rely on the moonlight as we trekked.
いやー、暗くてうっかり転びそうですね。
そう？僕は見えてるけど。
あ、猫の鈴ついてる。
つけとかないとハミエルに怒られるし。
お前が他人の背後に立たなきゃいいんだよ。しかし、まさかここで山登りをする羽目になるとはな。これじゃいかにもな逃亡犯じゃないか。
I mean, he is a stereotypical fugitive.
というか逃亡犯そのもののような。
No, okay.
いいからもう少し静かに歩け。
でも、どこまで行く？そろそろどっかで休んだ方が良くない？
登る前、中腹に山小屋があるのが一瞬見えた。そこで一晩明かすとしよう。
警察が追ってくるんじゃないか？
町の反対側から派手に逃げ出したように見せたからな。まずはそっちの足取りを追うだろう。一晩ぐらいなら欺けるはずだ。
さすが元警官。ありがたすぎて泣けてくるね。
The conversation helped us keep track of where each other person was as we advanced up the mountain trail.
しかし、二人とも無事でよかった。アシュ、警察では何か聞かれたか？
妙な黒服の男が取り調べに来て、お前らのことを聞かれたくらいだ。
妙な黒服の男か。君も見たか、ミカ？
はい、見ました。
Belatedly, I realized I'd spaced out as I walked. I snapped out of it when Gib addressed me. If I didn't pay attention, I'd trip and hurt myself. I shook my head to focus and spoke up once again.
あの黒服の男の人、警察よりも権力がありそうでした。警官に対して指示を出してましたから。
警官に指示だと？随分といい身分みたいだな。くそ、思い出すだけでムカつく。
すみません。
いや、カミュが怒られてるわけじゃないから。
他に彼らについて見聞きしたことはあるか？
いえ、ただあの黒服はローマで私を事情聴取しに来た人たちと似てたと思います。
同じ黒服？なんかの組織か？
そういや、あの野郎、こんなのつけてたが、なんかわかるか？
What Ash held out was a small object that looked like a lapel pin. It had exquisite workmanship. The emblem juxtaposed a crown and an eye.
なんだ、アッシュもスリを覚えたのか？
ちげえよ。ムカついたから胸ぐら掴んでやった時に取れちまって、そのまま持ってきた。
やるじゃん、兄貴。でもこれ、何のマークだろう。神ならこういうの詳しいんじゃね？
Wouldn't it be Sally? She's the one who knows how to look stuff up.
いえ、初めて見るデザインですね。少なくともジャパンコミックのものではないです。
私も見たことがないな。サリー、落ち着いたら調べてくれないか？
サリー、もう眠いよ。
それより、その黒服のやつらってのも、あのびっくり人間の仲間か何かなんじゃないのか？
びっくり人間って、あの襲撃者のことですか？
アメコミみたいな人たちと警察がつながってるってことですか？いや、さすがにそれはないんじゃ。
いや、その可能性は高い。例の襲撃者は護送車が襲われなければ知り合うはずだと言っていたからな。警察が黒服の男たちに逆らえないとなると、例の襲撃者も十中八九同じ組織の人間だと考えていいだろ
あ、そういやそんなこと言ってたっけ。うわ、じゃあマジで警察はそいつらの言いなりってこと？最悪じゃん。
少なくとも、警察すべてが信用ならないってことは、これではっきり明確になったな。
The situation was worse than simply being pursued as a criminal. I wonder what it would take to put an end to all of these cat and mouse games. No, stop. I can't think about stuff like this right now. Because if I did, I'd see something horrifying. I'd see the bottomless pit of despair staring up at me. This wasn't the time to overthink, but at the same time, I knew very well that relinquishing all thought wouldn't solve anything. Our conversation died out under the gravity of our realizations, and we continued our hike for the mountain lodge in silence. Okay, it's a good place to stop it. I'm trying to keep these under an hour.
これで OK?
Since I'm starting to post these under TikTok as well. Somebody asked me to put more presence on TikTok, and so I'm trying it. Although, quite frankly, I don't think I belong there.
これで問題ありませんか？
Anyway, we'll stop it there. This is meowmurai. You've been watching Despera Drops running on Nintendo Switch 2. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream. More exciting stuff tomorrow. Man, this is great. This is a really good story.